either the Kool-Aid is extremely strong, or there's something there, but so there's another Chris Nordella. He walked away from it too, so I'm like, wait, hold on, what's going on
Something's
here?
up.
It's very obvious to me. The evidence is there. Everybody seems to think it's a self-imploding product, right?
Yeah.
Having a conversation with some of the leaders of the new model that came out a couple of years ago, which is basically a copycat that came out of this.
They're all copycats, yeah.
That one's not working. My question is, in manufacturing, you reach that sweet point. You can only produce so many widgets by the time you actually start losing your profitability. When you reach 90,000, the structural, are you experiencing a little bit of a bottleneck on?
No, I think it's a little bit market driven because a lot of agents left over the last couple of years because it's a hard time to sell real estate. I mean, it's a real estate transaction recession, a lot less volume. Mm-hmm. You go from 6.5 million to 3.9 million transactions. A lot of people leave. And I think a little bit of competition. I think it's a little bit of both.
The agents are looking for a solution and they're putting the blame on the brokerage, right?
Well, and here's what I think. So the question is like, okay, now we have all these copycats. Can you continue to keep growing? Is what I'm imagining the question is, no? Engineering wise?
I'm talking about the sustainability of being able to continue to grow.
Got it. Think about like a couple things. One, being first to market matters. Mm-hmm. Uber has 75% of all rideshare traffic. There's a Lyft, but Uber has 75%. Amazon has 65% of all retail traffic online. Okay, so we are the Uber of cloud-based. Everybody else is fighting to be Lyft. Big point. Here's where a lot of growth is going to take place. 40% of agents are with Dillard's, JCPenney's, and Marshalls. That's Century 21, Caldwell Banker, Douglas Elliman.
What percentage?
40%. And all of those, and there's 120 brokers in the United States, 70% of them have less than 10 agents. And they're all sucking wind. I would propose if you have less than, I think 200 agents or less, you're still sucking wind.
Have you done the research as to what the percentage is at VCCAR of large to small?
No, what is it?
Yeah, so 90% of the agents are with a small brokerage. Let's say that there's 2,000 members. That means that there's 200. I mean,
how many members is there?
There's 2,000.
2,000?
Yeah, so now you have Conejo and Ventura. I think there's a little bit of cross there. So let's say that there's about 4,000.
Agents total.
Right. Let's say that in Ventura County, because of Ojai, we may have about 4,500. And the gross majority are affiliated with a small brokerage, mom and pop. There is a high concentration in the small. The challenge that the industry has as far as the association is how to reach that one and twos. Because they work from home. They don't answer the door. They don't answer their phone. So I think that there's a skewed number there because out of those 4,000 agents out there, only 2% of them are actually putting a deal together. Let's say that we did 2,000 transactions. The average would be one per agent on the membership, right? But when you start looking at the numbers that you have or the numbers that the other agent that is doing a high volume, then that means that the majority of the agents are like at zero. 76% didn't do a transaction.
Yeah, and
That's
Leo told me in a mastermind that up until June of last year, 70+% hadn't sold one of their own listings. So that's where all the growth's happening. So I think in the next 10 years, 50% of all agents will be with a cloud-based brokerage just because of math, not because I think I'm super smart. It's just mathematics. It's just money, because money is oxygen to a business. The two basic expenses to brokerage is staff and space. So that's the key thing to get rid of. And what people don't realize is we got rid of them. So that huge migration, 10 years from now, we could have 400,000. So that's where that sustainable, I think there's another like really big wave.
I think that the big wave is going to be the international growth.
That too.
Because they have inventory that we don't have.
Yeah.
So, we have phantom inventory. Hopefully we can get that stuff sold.
Sure.
It's going to come to market eventually. The beauty of the international, we're just doing some research with Vicente. There's key markets that we have as from our foreign, parent companies, right? Our parent countries. Like my mom and dad now live they retired, they live in Jalisco. There's a lot of inventory of property to sell. There's only one real estate agent.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I can go and you don't need licensing. All I need is to go out there and say, hey, I am going to support you, be able to be much more profitable. Now we're going to focus on marketing to the individuals that own property there.
Yeah.
Or want to buy property there.
Yeah.
So now you duplicate that in all the core markets in different countries
Agreed.
where there's not a solid connection
And
to.
you need no permission. You don't have to sign any franchise agreements. You don't have to have any space.
Yeah.
Like what I realized, which was like this aha awareness, eXp is software that you pay $150 to join one time and $85 a month to process deals. That's all it is. Software. So do you remember when we were sitting down with that guy and he's like, yeah, bro, but like, there's this region and like, you know.
Well, when he was offering you to be like a team leader for...
No, it was like a regional owner. And you're like, yeah, dude, but like you realize I have a regional opportunity and I don't have to sign any agreements. You realize that, right? I'm like, you realize like the whole thing you do a regional thing is to get rev share and I already get rev share. You're like, you realize that, right? And I can do it anywhere, not just in this geographic area.
But you're restricted by
Right, geographic area.
geographic area. But that's the part.
And then you know what he said to us? He was like, yeah, well, I have something to sell. So I said to him, great, how much can you sell it for? And you know what he said to me? He was like, I don't know, maybe like 2 million. I said, great, what would it cost you to get out of business? 4 million to get out of leases and this and that. It's like, bro, you don't have something to sell. And then he's like, yeah. And then you know what he said to me? What happens if you put all your eggs in one basket? I'm like, that's what you did. The problem is it's on somebody else's brand, not yours. Because I told him like our hedge is like a personal brand.
Do you see the model as a centralized model or a decentralized model? And if it's one or the other, what makes it?
I think the operation is centralized and the leadership's decentralized. And the cool part about the leadership being decentralized is that in order to attract A+ talent, you need an A+ opportunity. The opportunity that was presented to you was an A+. That's why you didn't take it.
So when you say centralized versus centralized,
Centralized meaning like it goes to one place. So the operation is centralized. You have like, well, whatever, 100 employees running this huge brokerage, and it all flows into one place to do the processing of deals, making sure people are getting paid, all that. But the leadership is decentralized. So they have like kind of executives, but me and you are now leaders.
The decentralized model you're talking about by leaders everywhere is kind of like the root system of a tree. That's how I'm seeing this, is that now you have roots in different locations taking up the different
Yes.
nutrients from different, things to be able to grow it. Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm proposing that, it's just like, that's how I'm proposing it to myself, to see it as a tree. The product is the closed transactions, but then you have that core trunk that is the actual agent that needs this decentralized support.
They need, not only do they need centralized support, but what's happened over the years is that brokers have outsourced all their value. Like I shouldn't have a coaching company. Mike shouldn't have a coaching company. His son shouldn't have a coaching company. And here's what they don't realize. So this was another aha moment.
Imagine Coldwell Banker inviting Century 21 to go do a presentation for your agent.
What they're doing is that they're recycling the same talent. So, Chris Leader is going to all the brands, right? Without naming any names, we went to different
models,
anywhere brand, they're all those leaders are, the branch managers, they're all suffering from the same problem. They're not excited about the business. They're giving up.
Yeah.
They're giving up because it's, agents are asking for nice space. Well, there's no budget to be able to paint the walls, right?
Yeah.
Where I was actually covering the cost out of my own pocket.
Were you really?
Just to be able to keep them happy. It's like, oh, let me get the guys to paint, the walls and so forth. So I'm operating it like it's my own business. And if you go in, and interview a specific manager under that model,
They'll tell you
they're exhausted. They're doing a lot of stuff out of their own pocket.
They're like teachers, bro.
Oh yeah, there you go. Oh, there's a good
in the
example.
education system.
It's a different color, but it's all the same thing.
Yes.
Right. Because unfortunately, as a structure, as they have the company owned stores, they're having this, they have some structural problems.
Yes.
And the franchisee, they're being sucked dry because there's no resources for them to be able to keep the operations going. You need amazing amounts of cash to be able to cover. That model is not likely. I mean, perhaps the Purple company is likely going to do because it's a publicly traded company and very well organized, but I think that they've lost a lot of luster as well.
To your point, like and also like a light bulb went off. So I used to own part of an office, and the woman that I owned it with, she owns 5. Mm-hmm. About 800 agents at the time. It's probably a little less now. But when I was making that decision, she said something to me. She was like, hey, can you do me a professional courtesy? I had the same response. I'm like, sure. She said, if anybody calls you out of my 5 offices, can you give me a heads up? You know what I realized instantaneously? What was she speaking to me as? An owner. What this model does and what the traditional models don't realize, it makes me owners. It puts me on the same playing field as them. And here's the wild part, to your point. Those managers that are running stuff, they now have to compete with me and Jose. The guys who sold 2,000 homes, the guy who sold 1,000, the guy who has 60,000 followers on Instagram and gets 2 million views on YouTube to attract.
But they still see themselves as owners.
Right. I had this conversation with you.
Yes. It's like they still see themselves
The
as
separation.
I'm the owner, you're the agent, so it's that. You stay over there, stay in your lane.
Yeah.
My lane is here.
Right.
Your lane's not that lane.
Well, we train our managers to think that way.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, take ownership of your office.
No, and then you give them, they give them massive egos. They're like, oh, they have all these titles. Like look, he's laughing. CEO. I'm like the whatever. And then they walk around like they own this stuff. And most of them have never actually sold a lot of real estate in high volume. Most of them. And then they would try to pull me in to talk to them. I'm like, bro, that person's going to be gone in 6 months, a year. By the time I get around to talk to them, they're not going to be here anymore. Because it's like a hard thing to his point. There's no resources. They're asking you to perform miracles. It's like not working.
Based on watching the eXp show,
Yes.
there's been a lot of emphasis in the downline revenue shows.
Yes.
And unfortunately, a lot of people just don't, you say revenue share and they walk
turn
away, right? I have 4 kids. 2 of them one of them is a freshman in high school. The other one's a freshman at college. So I was explaining to Jasper, my freshman, is like, as soon as you are 18, you're going to get your license. And I'm going to train you on how to be able to create some wealth based on this. Well, they had just gone through the economics class when they said you walk away and you run away from pyramid schemes, right? So, he approached mom, was like, hey, like, are you sure that dad is not going crazy?
Is he going to go to jail? Like, what's he doing?
Yeah. And so I had to explain to him, I was like, we're not asking you to go out there and buy $2,000 worth of Nerium product.
No.
They're not doing that. It's different. He's still,
Well, and here's the way that I've explained it to people and I watch their mind melt. So I'll be like, yeah, I appreciate that. Let me ask you a question. In a company, let's say a corporation, there's a CEO at the top, right? That CEO usually makes like 300 times more than everybody else, correct? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, all right. And then I'll actually draw it on a piece of paper. I'll be like, CEO. And I'm like, underneath them are C-suite executives, right? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, they make more money than other people, not as much CEO, right? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, underneath those people are middle managers, right? And they're like, yeah. And then underneath them are the general workers. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, hey, what shape is that? It's a pyramid. All businesses are pyramids. And another good way to explain it to people is YouTube, because we understand revenue sharing, right? Like, that's what YouTube does. They share revenue with their content creators. And it was so fast of an engine of growth, it caused YouTube to become the second largest search engine in the world at half the speed that it took Google to become the first. And when Google realized they had such stiff competition, you know what they did? They bought YouTube. High energy equals high income. This is the good shit, not the bullshit. How many of you guys have been to meetings where you feel as though you are going to fall asleep within 5 minutes of the speaker speaking? Anybody besides me? Say aye. I'm sorry, high income equals high what? And our intention today is really to equip you with what you need in a changing environment. Because has anybody besides me noticed that the environment has changed dramatically? Anybody besides me? I need to really have a plan in place for when the environment changes.